group of aging World War II vets, and when I say aging, remember that D-Day was 69 years ago, so the absolute youngest veteran of that day is about 87 years old now. Well, these aging vets went to Washington to see the memorial dedicated to them, to the war that they fought. And when they got there, they found the Park Service had erected barricades around it, around an open-air memorial, because it was closed due to the shutdown. The open-air memorial was closed. I'm Steve Green, and this is the first Trifecta in a special three-part series all week long looking at the federal government shutdown from all the angles, or at least all the angles we can show you on a family-friendly network. Today, it's Shutdown Theater, or Washington's Theater of the Absurd. So let's bring on my family-friendly co-hosts, Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. Well, half family-friendly. Scott, where does a government that shut down find the money to pay Park Service personnel to erect barricades to elderly veterans? No, wait. Where does a government find the gall to do that?
Well, yeah, that's the issue. The thought to me that my grandfather, who passed away 2 years ago this month, that my grandfather might have made a trip to Washington, D.C. in order to see the monument, not the monument that the government built, the monument that was built almost entirely by private contributions, $197 million in private contributions, about $16 million of government money went into that thing. In fact, it took so long for them to build a memorial to that greatest generation of soldiers and sailors and Marines and merchant Marines and Coast Guard people. It's unbelievable that it took all those years to build it. And then it was built with contributions from many of those veterans themselves, who their government had just essentially forgotten about them. That he would have gone down there and been turned away. Frankly, my pop would not have put up with that. That he could have made a trip to Normandy, where I understand they've shut down the American-run museum over there. And after all his life, he finally did get a chance to go over to Normandy and stand on that beach and go to that museum if they had shut that down. These people are despicable. And by these people, I mean the Democrats in Congress, and I mean President Obama himself. This is unconscionable. And frankly, what does a park guard do at the World War II memorial? Does he go, hey, that's the granite there. Don't touch it with your bare hands?
There's never anybody there except for the tourists. It's ridiculous. All right, at Lake Mead, Ralph and Joyce Spencer, ages 80 and 77, they were evicted from their private home for the duration of the shutdown because, well, I guess because the Park Service could and because they were told to. Bill, this is the National Park Service doing this stuff. When did Park Service personnel, I mean, you think of guys in ranger hats, when did they become jackbooted thugs?
They became jackbooted thugs on January, what was it, 20th of 2009. Yep. That's when they became jackbooted thugs. Yeah. It's not a hard question to answer, Steve. This is imperial decree. This is rule by diktat. This is the emperor forcing a plague of frogs upon his subjects for having the audacity to put some limits on his behavior. How dare we tell this president that we are going to stop this out-of-control addictive spending? How dare the American people raise up and say there are going to be some limits on this through their elected representatives in the House of Representatives, the People's House? How dare they defy this man? And so is the same thing we saw with the sequester. Remember the sequester? The sequester was going to be the end of the universe. We're still in sequester. The end of the universe. Not government cuts, not a government shutdown, a slowdown in the rate of growth. Catastrophic catastrophe for America. Well, there was no catastrophe for America. And this is the one thing that these control freak swine fear more than anything else, is the American people realizing just how superfluous almost all of them are, just how expensive this government is for supposedly the freest people in the world. Do you know that the government of the supposedly freest people in the world costs more money than the GNP of the second biggest economy in the world, China? It costs more to run the American government than China produces in a year. And that's a communist state. Honestly, what these people fear is the American people waking up to the fact that virtually 90%, maybe 95% of the tax money that they pay for government services are not used. And this is the thing that they cannot abide by. So we could have closed the national parks, or we could have furloughed the Assistant Deputy Undersecretary to the Department of Education's Inter-Office Communications Bureau. But no, we're going to lock our veterans out of their parks so that the American people will understand who the boss is, Steve. That's the idea.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. You know, and Bill, I'm glad you mentioned the sequester because we went through this same kind of thing back in March with the sequester battle. Obama wanted his $83 billion back, and when Congress wouldn't give it to him, he closed the White House to tourists. He threatened to stop food inspections,
Air
and he
traffic
even put our
control.
own national security at risk by leaving one of our only 10 aircraft carriers tied up at dockside. And back then, I called it government by temper tantrum. The only thing that's changed this time around is that the big baby is throwing an even bigger fit. Don't let him get away with it, or he's just going to do it again. For Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, I'm Steve Green.